morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, so today we need to have a look at a bunch of new trainer cards, and we need to start off by saying, I was right, ladies and gentlemen, I totally called it. And this is another one of those situations where I was right, just to be clear, I was absolutely right, but also, come on, we knew that we were getting these Bianca products over in Japan. I've told you before, when I'm sharing, we've got a new Bianca card coming, of course. And when I share this stuff with you, I'm not showing you stuff which is just random rumors. When I'm showing you this stuff, it's because there's been a listing or there's been something coming out which is absolutely believable and true, and that was the case. I told you Bianca was coming back, but I also told you there were two options. I told you that it could be the case, like Skylar, where we just get a straight reprint of Skylar years later, and it's the exact same card with the exact same effect, like we had in Rebel Clash. But I also warned you guys that it could be a situation like Corinna, for instance, where we do get a new Corinna card, but it is like Corinna's Focus, which is, of course, not like the old Corinna card. And I told you the other day when I showed you this stuff was coming that we had no actual way of knowing one way or the other which one it was going to be. Well, we do now know which one it is, and it's not old Bianca. Remember, old Bianca actually got released fairly recently as Corinna's Focus, although it is worth pointing out that Corinna's Focus is going to be rotating as this new set comes out. So we are essentially losing our Bianca thing, never mind. What we've got is a brand new card, Bianca's Devotion, and it heals all damage from one of your Pokemon that has 30 HP or less remaining. Oh. And you know what? It's alright. It's not amazing, but it's alright. Now, there are, of course, some fairly obvious uses for this. If it survives, massive if, then obviously this works great with Roaring Moon. Because Roaring Moon, you get an instant KO, but you have to do 200 damage. You've only got 30 left, assuming you've got no buffs or anything like that. So, in theory, you've got 30 HP remaining, and this will heal you up nicely. But also, if you've got 30 HP remaining on a 2-prize Pokemon, most of the time your opponent is going to be able to finish that off. Honestly, this would be a phenomenal card for Versus Seeker. If you end up in a situation where you've got a multiple prize Pokemon with 30 HP or less remaining, use Versus Seeker, use Bianca's Devotion, heal you up nicely. Of course, we can do a similar thing from the deck using Luminion, which will, of course, survive the rotation. We're going to have that for another year yet. But this is, I can find it when I need it kind of card. Forest Seal Stone would be another way this would be potentially pretty good. Just, using Forest Seal Stone to grab this out when you need it. This is not a 4-off build your deck around kind of thing. Normally, it's a 1-off that you search when you need it. But we always get things like Machamp from 151, for instance, whereby if you would be knocked out, you flip a coin, and if heads, you go down to 10 HP remaining rather than being knocked out. And then this comes in and heals you up completely. Like, stuff like that is fun, but there's nothing in the format at the moment that I can think of. As always, let me know in the comment section if you can, that works that way and is actually relevant and would use this nicely. So, look, it's cool, it's very nice, but I also don't think it's going to work often enough. This is one that you play as a one-off if you can search it out. I'm giving it 4 Wassies because it's inherently very powerful, but it's also kind of awkward. Also along those same kind of lines, we've got Emergency Board. Now, Emergency Board is a new tool card that reduces your retreat cost by 1. It's alright. It's like half an air balloon, but bearing in mind air balloon rotated out. And actually, in terms of reducing retreat cost post-rotation, we've got big air balloon that only works on stage 2s, and we've got Future Boost Energy Capsule, which only works on future Pokemon, and that's it. Like, in terms of reducing retreat cost. So, sure, reducing retreat cost by 1 is far from perfect, but we are in a situation moving forward where we are not good at reducing retreat. So I'm not saying reducing by 1 is good compared to other cards we've had in the past, but I am saying it's good compared to other cards we have now, because seriously, if you are a non-future, non-stage 2 Pokemon, this instantly becomes the best you've got for reducing retreat. Yeah. Oh yeah, but if you got 30 or less HP remaining, then it puts you down to 0 retreat instead, which you will notice is actually kind of nice, because you retreat for free with Emergency Board, and then heal up with Bianca's Devotion, and yeah, actually not terrible. But again, it's very situational, so I mean, look, I can say that this will probably see some play just for reducing retreat cost by 1, because there are plenty of single retreaters out there that will want to use it. And as for the second part, it's not always going to work, but sometimes it will. Let's give it another 4 Wassies. I don't think it's great, but I just think there's enough single retreat stuff out there that are going to be able to make use of this. But if you want to annoy your opponent instead, how about Hand Trimmer? Do not use this to actually trim your hands, that will go badly. But we do have an interesting card here. This is one whereby it's an item card, and both players discard cards in their hand until they each have 5 cards in their hand. And I actually kind of love this. Like, control decks very often build up a very large hand while they're basically, storing resources. This can really hurt them. Like, there's decks out there, I showed you the other day, I am a gigantic fan of the new Roaring Moon. It's one of those ones that does more damage for each of your ancient cards in the discard pile. So you can essentially use this to buff up stuff like Roaring Moon, which I think is absolutely brilliant. Huge fan of that. And actually, yeah, your opponent gets too big a hand, use it. You want to put a bunch of your cards in the discard pile, use it. I really genuinely like this. But there is also a hilarious thing you can do here with Amoonguss. Because Amoonguss has the ability Surprise Spores, and it's from Silver Tempest, it's going to survive rotation. During your opponent's turn, if this Pokemon is discarded from your hand by an effect of an attack or ability from your opponent's Pokemon, or by an effect of your opponent's item or supporter cards, discard your opponent's hand. So you literally can choose to discard Amoonguss here, and if your opponent plays Hand Trimmer, and you choose to discard Amoonguss, your opponent loses their entire hand. Which is genuinely hilarious. As a side note, don't try and use this card against control decks, because they are the ones I imagine will actually be playing Amoonguss. But this card is kind of funny, but also genuinely kind of good. People will use it, and I'm sorry, I'm giving it another 4 Wassies. I'm giving him my honest opinion here. I'm sorry it keeps being 4. But there's more. We've also got ourselves Order Box, another item card, which ends your turn, but you search your deck for up to 2 item cards, put them in your hand, and then shuffle your deck. And it ends your turn, but you search your deck for 2 item cards. And here's the thing. It's really good and absolutely riddled with downsides. Because, first of all, you get your item cards, but then your turn ends, so you can't use them. We all know Battle VIP Pass is going away with the rotation, so using this to get item cards to go and get your basic Pokemon would be awesome, except your turn ends, so you can't. And then, of course, Iono is a huge card right now. And if you search your deck for any 2 item cards, your opponent doesn't need to guess. Your opponent knows you don't want them to play Iono, so if they have an Iono or a way to get an Iono, they are probably going to prioritize getting an Iono. Is it just never going to work? Like, there are going to be some games where, you don't need to attack, like in control decks, for instance. So you can use this and, I don't know, sooner or later your opponent's not going to have Iono, maybe it will be fine. And you can essentially use this to end your turn every turn, and it's like a better Rotom. If you can find this every turn and keep recovering it, which of course is a massive if. Outside of that, I think most of the time, it's either going to be too late by the time it comes back to your turn to use the items, or you're not going to have the items when it comes back to your turn. I'm giving it 3 Wassies, but that is extremely generous. I think this card might be terrible. And then we finish off with one more supporter card. We've got Eri. First ever Eri card. Yay! And I know I've mentioned control decks a couple of times here. Of all the control cards we've looked at, this is the one which would make me the most excited if I was playing a control deck. Because your opponent reveals their hand and you discard up to 2 items you find there. Yes. You know what a lot of item cards are nowadays? A-specs. And in fact, except for the one energy card, all the A-specs are item cards. And we've actually had that confirmed that is going to be the case. So, yeah. If you can catch your opponent's A-spec, this is legitimately hilarious. And supporter cards are much easier to recover than, say, item cards. You know, something like Pal Pad, for instance, you are going to be able to use over and over again. Or, you know, you'll be able to use Pal Pad to get multiple, play multiple Pal Pad, and then you're just recovering your Pal Pad. And my point is, this will work quite nicely. Or at least would if it wasn't rotating out. Because Pal Pad was last printed in Scarlet and Violet. But my point is, we always end up having stuff like Pal Pad, which lets us recover supporter cards more easily. So I like the idea of using this and just going after your opponent's item cards. I think this one could actually end up being really quite good. This one's pretty cool. I'm giving it between 3 and 4 Wassies. When I give half Wassies, that would be barbaric. I'd like it more if Pal Pad wasn't rotating, or if Pal Pad gets reprinted. But at the moment, that's where we are. And I know I've scored this lower than some other cards, but I've explained it. I don't know. Don't worry too much about the scores. Worry about the cards. We've got a bunch of new trainer cards. And honestly, I think all of these could end up being good. I don't think any of them are slam dunk play in every deck cards, but I think all of these have the potential to be good. So there we go. And now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about this. Tell me how excited you are. Tell me which of these cards you love. Tell me anything you want to tell me in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie. That's where we talk about Pokemon and card games and Pokemon card games, all kinds of fun things. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, all kinds of fun things, and get shout-outs on the channel like the lovely Kiridan, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.